We are back with the FloTrack podcast. FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com is our email address. Please write in. I'm Kevin. He's Gordon. And you can also find the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and FloTrack.org/FloTrack podcast. Gordon, what was our agreement yesterday on the over-under of how long it would be until we'd know about cross country? Was it last night? Did I set the line at like 5 p.m. last night?
I think you did. So it's definitely going to be the over because we're only at 45%. We need to get to 50
I lost.
to get that full cross country team cancellation. But I want to talk about what are your thoughts on Dame Lillard scoring 60 points against Dallas, which might be the reason why the San Antonio Spurs 30 million year streak of going to the playoffs comes to an end. It's an NBA podcast.
Dame Lillard's
for those who don't know.
Dame Lillard's very good. Obviously, they got him upset in that Clippers game, which they shouldn't have done. They should not have taunted him because now he's on a tear. I like how you say Dame Lillard is responsible for the Spurs missing the playoffs, when in reality, it's your Philadelphia 76ers who had chances to give losses to the two teams that needed losses, the Suns and the Blazers, in successive games. And instead of actually trying and respecting the game and the spirit of competition, they sat everybody out, or everybody's hurt. It's the Sixers. Who knows? But now we're in this unfortunate situation where the Spurs are probably going to do everything that they could to make the playoffs. But none of these other teams are going to lose either, and everybody's just going to win out. And because the Spurs played one fewer game before the pandemic, they are going to see their streak come to an end. Sad. The whole league, and particularly the Philadelphia 76ers, are conspiring against them, is my conclusion.
I just like it's bringing us together during this pandemic. We have something else to talk about in our group text message besides cross-country cancellation status updates. So I kind of want San Antonio to make the playoffs because I know once they don't, you're going to be like, playoffs are dead to me, and then you're not going to want to communicate with me about NBA until next year. So I honestly want San Antonio to make it because I want you to be involved. Because once you're not involved, it's like, all right, I have no friends left.
I got serious.
Because Lincoln doesn't care about basketball. Lincoln's like, whatever.
He's a Bulls fan. They're not there. They probably should have sent the Bulls, because maybe the Bulls could have gone on like a Suns-like run and won all their games and got in. If you wanted the Spurs, you could have had them. Your team just needed to play. All they needed to do was try, and they could have probably won at least one of those games, and we'd be in a much better position. We're coming to the end though of cross country, I believe. I know I took the under last night, so I think I owe you Raising Cane's at some point in the next meet that we cover together. We had Big Ten and Pac-12 canceled their fall sports season yesterday. Now they also left open the option of moving it to the spring. I thought that would immediately be followed by smaller conferences, not necessarily the rest of the Power Five, but other small conferences canceling as well, which is why I thought we'd get to the 50% number last night. We have not yet, as of this recording. What's the current number breakdown right now for NCAA men's and women's cross?
So we just need 17 more men's programs. Yeah. 17 more women's programs to cancel and 19 more men's programs to cancel for us to hit that threshold of 50%. There's a lot of conferences that came out right away that said, hey, we're not canceling yet. Hold up. But notably, we think might get canceled today is Big Sky, which would be 10 more, which would then make it down to just one more conference left to cancel. And I think Southland might cancel, but we don't know. And Horizon. So there are, the conferences out there still are Big Sky, Big South, American, ACC, Atlantic Sun, which everyone loves, Big 12, Big East, Conference USA, Horizon, Missouri Valley, Ohio Valley, which has 12 teams. Isn't that crazy? There's 12 teams in the Ohio Valley Conference. I just think it's just Eastern Kentucky, but it's not. It's 12 other teams, 11 other teams. SEC, Southern, which you think is just Furman, but no, it's 10 teams. Southland, which has 13 teams. There's more teams in the Southland Conference than in the Pac-12. That's crazy. Sun Belt, WAC, and West Coast Conference. We're going to get to that 50%. I got a text from a prominent cross-country coach last night saying, my AD just asked me how Spring XC would work.
Yeah.
So
Did you send him the
these
clip to the
ADs,
Mac plan?
I did. I did say my plan, but my plan is patent pending,
They didn't
so I
respond to
didn't
you
want to.
after.
They didn't respond to that. No, but I mean, a lot of these ads are just thinking like, hey, because they're all doing like postpone football to the spring, which isn't going to happen. Let's be honest, it's not going to happen. And I think this is what we're in the. This is what's going to happen. I think we're going to get to the 50%. Cross country is going to get NCAA will cancel the championships. There are going to be conferences that push their conference championship to the spring. I think a small amount are going to actually run in it, like maybe the Ivy League people running their conference championship in the spring. I think NCAA is not going to reschedule it. I think NCAA is going to be like, go to indoor. Sorry, cross country, you're out. And then I
Mhm.
also think some of these conferences, I think SEC is going to try to play. And I think there's a good chance, I think a higher than 50% than under 50% chance the SEC cross country is happening. And it's just going to be bare bones of what it is normally because all the coaches are just not going to run their athletes that care about eligibility. They'll run all their walk-ons and stuff.
Yeah. There's two sets of rules here, one for football and one for everybody else. I know the Big 12, the ACC, and the SEC have said they still want to play, but they don't have that 50% trigger because the idea of the NCAA sponsoring the national championship doesn't apply to football the same way it does to the other sports out there. So SEC, ACC, and Big 12 can go and they can play a whole football schedule, but if they hit that 50% threshold for the fall, it doesn't matter. So the Southland Conference in this equation matters just as much right now as the Big 12. The Big Sky matters just as much as the ACC in terms of whether or not cross-country national championships are going to be held.
And I think because the Big Ten and Pac-12, I mean, now we're a college football podcast, drop. Think about like the American Athletic Conference, right? That's like Houston. They have Memphis, right? They normally have like one team that goes like 10-2 or maybe an 11-1 team.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
they're probably thinking, wait a minute, this is our chance. We could have a team make the Final Four because the at worst is going to be 3 undefeated teams, and if they go undefeated as well, hey, maybe they'll put us in the top 4. So maybe American Athletic Conference is like, this is our chance to shine. This is our chance to get in the college football playoff. Again, I'm not really an expert though because we're not a college football podcast. We're an NBA/track podcast. But yeah, we're just waiting for the 50% threshold to drop. It's been fun keeping track of this. I'll be honest. It's like, do you know how long it took me to find out how many teams there were in cross country on the women and men's side? It took a long
Probably
time.
too long. Yeah,
Because
and
you think you would
go ahead.
think it's just just look at regionals and see how many teams are on the regionals of the 9 regions and just add up the numbers. Like, no, you can't do that because there is like 30% of NCAA cross country that doesn't even bother racing at regionals. So like you have to find that percentage. So
yeah, you feel horrible for all the athletes, coaches, staff, everybody that's impacted by this in the Big Ten and the Pac-12. And again, we'll do once it's official. I think we'll go and dig more into that side of things and talk about what we're going to miss most about the season. It goes without saying that without the Mountain West, without the Pac-12, without the Big Ten, that's about half of the national field between those 3 conferences, probably on any given year. So that's, even if they are able to salvage something, it's going to be much different. What's up, Gordon? Your eyes just lit up.
I got some breaking news. Okay, Big South has just postponed.
Okay.
So we are now threshold is now at
Gordon's typing into a
48%.
spreadsheet.
Now at 48%. We got to update the ticker.
Yeah, Alon, can you update that?
I'm
as of
right
August, the morning of August 12th, 48%. Has anybody ever updated the ticker in real time on a FloTrack podcast?
August 12th, 9:22 a.m. Central Time. We're doing this. We're doing this live, guys.
Just riveting.
Hold on. 9/12.
So there's another conference. Go ahead.
The Big South. You know who's in the Big South? Campbell.
Campbell Camels.
And
Yeah, I I don't know why any of these smaller conferences would stick around, but maybe the theory that you had is one of the reasons. I'm not as pessimistic as you are about the spring from just a logistics perspective. I think they can make it work if they want to make it work. It's more a question of, with a sport like cross country and track where you have 3 in 1, is it all going to are you going to get any sort of agreement with everybody? But I think potentially spring could happen. Here's what I think might be happening, and I'm using previous examples from this era as templates, as things that are being instructed. But do you remember when we were talking about the Olympics? Remember way back when? Remember our Olympic discussions?
oh, the good old days.
Yeah, and we were saying, well, what are they like? What's the time frame in terms of when they're going to announce? And we were talking about, well, you don't want to announce until you're pretty close to announcing when the backup date is, because you don't want to just leave people hanging of like, there's no Olympics. I think, and I have no information on this. Again, this is just wild speculation. I'm not reporting this at all. I think those 3 conferences are trying to get assurances for a backup plan, because they would want to announce that in short succession before canceling the fall. I think that's what's going on here. In
Oh, so
addition
they
to probably
know
figuring
they're
out the
canceled.
financials.
So they know
Yeah,
they're canceling. They're just trying to think about the cancellation announcement.
that's my guess. I think they want to be able to say, hey, we're postponing, but we've already worked out the logistics. Here's how spring is going to look. We got to hit these benchmarks and metrics, so it's not a guarantee, but this is what could happen. And they want to be able to tell their athletes that, and obviously fans, season ticket holders. There's so much money at stake here, not just on the television side of things, but all the small businesses in these towns that are impacted by college football existing. I think they want to be able to have some sort of semblance of a plan going forward. The problem is there's never really been a plan. There's been so many different constituencies here between the NCAA, the conferences, each individual college presidents, the athletic directors, the football coaches themselves, who have a huge influence on how the discussion is shaped. I think before they say it's over for the fall, they want to be able to say, but hey, here's what we're working on.
Yeah, I can see that. It is. I think is interesting is like going through these cancellations, like we talked about, kind of mirror. It's like a elongated version of what happened in Albuquerque in like 12
Mm-hmm.
in like a 4-hour span when they canceled NCAA indoors. Uh, and that during that time when they were when Harvard pulled out, and then when like Big Ten pulled out, we were like thinking about, oh, what does this mean for who's going to
The
like
DMR.
win the DMR? Oh wow, DMR without Notre Dame. What's going to happen? Uh, whereas here, New Mexico was eliminated from the NCAA cross country championships, and then literally today or yesterday, Stanford, Oregon, Washington, like basically the best cross country conference
Yeah.
in the nation, was just eliminated. And the reaction is like, whoa, this is going to be weird. It's more like, yeah, well, we're just waiting. Like we're not
Yeah.
falling for the bait of this is going to be wild when they have cross country without Stanford and Oregon. I mean, you got to think. I mean, the on the women's side, it was NC State versus New Mexico versus Stanford. So now NC State's like, hey, we're gonna win, right? We don't have anything in the
Yeah.
race. But
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously, we're looking at it differently, knowing that it's going to cancel. I'm as the chaos person in me. I want these Power Fives to hold on. I know you think they're not. I think you think they're planning their cancellation. I want them to hold on, and I want just chaos. I want weird cross country meets happening where there's like individual conference championships. I want the NCAA to like maybe move it, but only weird teams going. I just want chaos for this school year because it's entertaining. I know we all said we want some normalcy in our lives. Man, I want some. I want to crank it up to 10. That's what I want. I want to
You
crank
want
it
to,
up to 10.
yeah. Well, I think even if it is, even in the most orderly, organized fashion, it's going to be chaotic because with figuring out what to do with indoor and figuring out how to, if you're going to try to put cross country back in the bottle, or if you're just going to say scrap cross country, regardless, it's going to be, I mean, track, even when is on a regular year, track is crazy and there's weird things going on I thought you brought up a good point about how we're not falling for the bait this time. And we're not thinking, "Ooh, man, let's do a whole podcast analyzing what an ACC, Big 12, SEC, West Coast Conference, WAC,
Hey man,
NCAA cross country championship look like."
This is Texas's time not to get 29th at the national meet, man. Maybe they could be a top 15 program now.
Right. Well, and you'd still get, based on the teams now, you'd still get NAU, BYU, and Portland on the men's side.
There you go.
Arkansas.
So we're still good. Arkansas
Are you going to reveal?
Win.
Are you going to reveal your rankings at any point?
I mean, we need to, right? We were going to start revealing them earlier this month, but then when the cancellations happened, I think we should still have rankings though, right? Like when they officially cancel the season, that's when we'll launch our rankings, because that's great timing, right? But be honest, we should still do our rankings.
You put a lot of time and energy into them, and I think it would just be interesting for people to know how the season could have gone. Again, nobody's rankings are perfect, but it would have been interesting to just go through some of the storylines, because we never got to talk about it. And then we record that podcast, and then we just run it again next year before the beginning of the season, because everything will probably stay the same.
Well, that's my question about these rankings, right? All right. Typically, cross-country preseason rankings are based off of the last cross-country season, maybe the last two cross-country seasons if you have like a weird redshirt situation. And then it's also based off what these athletes did in the indoor and outdoor season, right?
Mm-hmm.
And notably, some championships are kind of more weighted than just times. These rankings were based off of just cross-country, nothing to do with outdoor. There was no way for like a person who finished 90th at cross-country nationals to have like a great outdoor season and run like a 13:30 5K to be like, oh, you're a legit top 20 guy now. But we don't know that, right? So these cross-country rankings were already kind of unknown because we don't have the data point of outdoor and the data point of indoor champs. Now imagine if, dare I say it, because everyone loves to cancel, right? If we end up canceling indoor and outdoor, we're going to have rankings based off of like super old data. And we will have rankings where we're going to have to look at Nico Young as not just a true freshman, but like like there's going to be two freshman classes that you have to account for, right? And it's just going to be even more weird to like see who's actually good and not good, because a lot of times you need some track times and track performances to help kind of weigh the strength of a team. But if everyone's personal best is 2 years old because they never got to run, it's kind of hard to know who's actually good and not good. I was just thinking about that. Like, will my preseason rankings, assuming no one, sorry, I'm interrupting you, assuming no one leaves or whatever, transfer, but would the preseason rankings that we announce later this month be the same 1 year from now?
No. Like how many deep? Like the top 10? No. I mean, the number one team might be the same. I don't.
Well, someone's going to transfer. No, taking that stuff out. The order, like the individual rank. It's not team, individual, right? Because we'll have a 255 individual list.
Well, give me some names then, and I'll tell you. Well, tell me the names, and I'll tell you. Because some people are going to go pro, right?
Okay. Again, taking the pro people out, I'm saying, will I have any reason to raise someone up or drop someone down?
I mean, depends how much you like time trials. Are you going to wait time trials? I don't think you can do that. I don't think that would be a very accurate measure of what's going on. I guess injuries, but that you put that in the same bucket as pro signings and stuff like that. No, you're right. Yeah. This is the same issue you're talking about with recruiting, right? And how all these coaches are going to be completely in the dark.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to have any and that's a much more serious problem than your rankings. Well, for them it is. For you, it's not. The most important thing is the fidelity with the rankings. But I think it's that they could at least use some time trial things to know at least if they're still in shape, and if, hey, you are a top recruit as a sophomore, then you'll probably project well now. But I mean, a lot of these high school kids are going to run, and it looks right now like they're going to run. They haven't canceled too many well, they've canceled some high school seasons, but not all of them. Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely. I'm interested to know. I mean, this is something we could tackle next week. Is we got a long list of things we're going to do next week. We got to maybe start on those pretty soon. But just how are the different college coaches going to approach this?
Yeah.
Are they going to try to do inter squad meets? Are they going to give people time off? Are they going to mimic what we've seen in the pro side of things? I'm interested to follow that. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm interested to follow you following that, to be honest.
Are you going to follow me following that?
No, I'm just going to read the stuff you post and watch the things you interview. And
No,
just, like,
they're going to
sit
come on
back
this.
and watch
They're
the
going to come
Sixers
on
in the playoffs.
Shut up. They're going to come on. They're going to come on this show and talk about it. That's what's going to happen. Yeah. That's how we're going to do this. We're going to have guests, college coaches who are going to have a little more time on their hands than they normally would. They're going to come on and they're going to talk about it. Just like in the beginning of this whole thing, we had a bunch of college coaches come on and talk about it. And now we're going to loop back to that and say, hey,
yeah,
remember 6 months ago when we were bummed about, or 5 months ago when we were bummed about indoor and outdoor being canceled? Now we're talking about cross country being canceled. What are you going to do now? How's your team going to stick together? Yeah. That's not interesting to you?
Not as interesting to me. I am going to, we need to find a way to at least be able to see these kids run somewhat, because, like, it's safe to run outside, right? It's not like they're, like, it's safe to live a regular lifestyle in this pandemic. I mean, some people are not, but it is possible to practice with your team and be safe. Like, it's going to be okay, especially if you're with the same people all the time. You're not really that risky. So, like, it is possible for these kids to go out there and get on a track and run a time trial 5K or time trial 10K or a mile or whatever. And they're going to want to. They're not going to want to, while cross country will be canceled, coaches aren't going to be like, sit on your butt for until indoor is here. You know, they're going to want to do something. They have energy. They want to let it ride, right? And the question is, like, what's going to be their avenue for doing that? Like, it would be great if we could find ways to get these teams to race each other somehow. I mean, maybe Portland and Oregon can race each other because they're closer. I mean, maybe teams that are within 2-hour driving distance can find ways to.
Well, didn't the Pac-12 essentially cancel? I think Pac-12 essentially canceled any form of competition through the end of 2020. That would be a no. They can practice, but I don't think they're allowed to compete with anybody.
You called it practice. You don't need to sanction it. Just call it a practice. Oh, you guys are. I mean, everyone's going to be learning remotely. Like, hey, they don't have to, like, be back on campus in time for class. So,
well, could they run unattached in? If road races come back, could they run unattached? Could they go to the Sunset Tour and run a 5K?
Yeah. Well, like NAU every year, they're unattached. They're like redshirted athletes run the Phoenix, like, 10K, run a 10K in Phoenix, like, in November. So I guarantee you the entire NAU cross country team is just going to go to Phoenix and run a 10K. Right? That's probably what will happen.
Yeah. I'm looking at the wording now in the Pac-12 statement. The first sentence says, postpone all sport competitions through the end of the 2020 calendar year, so they could not go to the BU 5K in December. I know that's a big event in your calendar.
That is. That's the biggest event on my calendar and Joe Franklin's calendar. I got an update for you. I got a Big 12 update for you. Okay. So your take that the reason they're taking time is to plan for their cancellation. Big 12 is But no, they're putting pedal to the metal. They're releasing an updated schedule.
Okay, but
They're
that's
announcing.
Big Ten released a schedule like last week, and then they shut the whole thing down.
Yeah, but like
That's not
the
convincing
timing
me.
of
That's not.
yeah, but if you're releasing a schedule within 12 hours of another Power Five canceling, that is, I mean, no one is asking for a schedule now. They already released their schedule. I don't know.
Who's deciding this? This is university presidents and conference commissioners. Those are different
Board
people
of
that
Governors.
are. Well, that's the NCAA level, but ultimately this is
Oh,
coming
okay.
down to the NCAA presidents and the conference commissioners. The president of the university is not writing up the schedule. That's a completely different department. So someone was told,
That's
"Hey, come
true.
up with a schedule," and they're writing, "Okay, I'll come up with a schedule." They're not even. I don't think they're even in the same room as
Yeah, that's
these
a good point.
other
That's a
discussions.
good point.
I think the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing in a lot of these cases. I think that's what we've seen over the last 6 months. Again, let's use our indoor example, and we're living a drawn out national NCAA indoor championships. That's our life. It's like Groundhog Day, except slowed down. Remember when they were like, "Hey, the press conference is going to happen," and we were like, "Wait, hold on. Is the meet even happening? Like, why is there going to be a coach's press conference?" And just nobody knew what was going on, and everybody was waiting for somebody else to do it. What was interesting there? Do you remember the first two conferences that pulled out?
Yeah, who was it? It was Big Ten and ACC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was ACC who's sticking in it now. Now, Pac-12. No one really knew what was going on with Pac-12 because I remember we talked to a Pac-12 coach while it was happening, and they're like, "Well, I guess we're running." Like they didn't really have any idea what was going on, so maybe they had canceled and nobody had told them, and the announcement hadn't matriculated out to the media yet. But yeah, it was the ACC was real early, along with the Big Ten. That's why I'm a bit surprised that they're still holding out here, but TBD, TBD.
In NBA news, they have introduced new guest rules for the bubble. So they're now starting to let people bring in some guests. Who would you bring
Good.
into your bubble in the cross country world? Got to try to find a way
Uh,
analogy to
as
for
a
running.
as a guest, I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Like, who do you
probably
miss the
Ryan Fenton.
most? Ryan Fenton? Okay. Well, who do you miss the most? Because that's probably the purpose, right? It's like, hey, you've been away from someone for
Mm-hmm.
so long, you get to bring them in now. Who do you miss the most in our world of like
Okay.
communicating with often, or just following, or just watching them run or talk?
Hmm. That's a good one. I mean, obviously, anybody who would be willing to watch my kid would be a have an advantage. But I guess in this bubble scenario, I'm not bringing my child. I'm signing away my life for the next couple months. Who do I Who do I see a bunch at these meets? I'm trying to think. Do you have somebody in mind other than Mike Smith?
uh I mean, they I don't know.
Keep going.
Dave Smith.
You had
Dave
some
Smith.
Dave Smith. You missed Dave Smith. Well,
Yeah, he's
dude,
cool. He's fun.
I feel really bad for Oklahoma State because they spent millions of dollars, right, to get their course
Oh
going
yeah. I just
this
thought
year.
about that.
And I hope the NCAA allows them to host next year. I hope they can work that out if the meet in fact is canceled. I hope that they're able to be in the rotation.
Well, they didn't do that for Texas, right? Because right now Texas isn't
Correct.
getting outdoors next year.
Right. Right.
Ooh,
So
that's a good point.
I
I didn't think about that.
yeah, I know he was on Ryan and Alex's pod several weeks ago and or several months ago now, I should say. But so yeah, he'd be a good pick. He'd be a good pick because you could maybe the bubble is in Stillwater where the meet is, and that way you could just you could commiserate there. Yeah, I miss the. I mean, Lance Harder's always fun to talk to. I think he'd be a good one. He might be competing still. I mean, all these people might be competing. When you and Lincoln talked about the bubble, and the two choices were between the Nike campus or Terre Haute, Indiana, I thought, man, that's a big difference between those two places.
Are there any athletes out there that were planning that only had like cross country eligibility left and were coming back just for one last hurrah for cross country? Because sometimes that happens, right? Where they only have cross and they're just doing it for the team. I mean, that's what like what's his name? Matt Baxter did,
Matt
right? He only
Baxter.
had
Yep.
cross left. He only had cross country left, and he came back for that. And they plan on graduating in December. I mean, if any of these teams have that type of athlete, I mean, they're definitely not going to come back one more year, right? That'd be even
Well, what
wilder.
about the grad transfers too? The
Yeah,
fifth year, like the people who had that extra year, right? We saw was it Kieran Chinchivate is coming to Texas for the 1 year. Now you could get if they allow them to come back and use the extra eligibility. I guess if you find that out now, maybe you turn your 1 year master's program into a 2 year master's program. So then that's the benefit to knowing now, as opposed to knowing
yeah.
later when you have all your classes done. What about
Or you just don't enroll, right? You try to go make some money for a year and then pretend and then come back, right? I don't know. But then, you
oh
might lose your eligibility once you start making money. I don't know.
yeah, Steelman, did she have was she a 4th year transfer or a 5th year transfer
I think she was a
from
fourth
Wofford?
year.
The one, okay.
I think she's a fourth year. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at the Wofford website. She is listed as a junior, because that would be a big one, of course, because she's an important part of NC State's title chances, and she was one that they added.
Yeah. One I'm thinking about Arkansas because they had a bunch. I mean, like Gilbert Boyd was a fifth year. They Amoyne Campbell was a fifth year. Like they had like 3 fifth years that were going to
Mm-hmm.
be in their top five. And the question is like, are these Kenyan athletes going to be able to stay an extra year on top of that? I don't know, right? Because it might
Mm-hmm.
be different with international athletes. I'm not sure. I mean, Arkansas will do everything they can to keep them an extra year because they'll be like, hey, this is our chance to be a podium team. And Arkansas has the money to do it that way. But that'll be an interesting one, too. Like
What
international
about
athletes,
the
right? Some are like, I'm going home,
yes,
right?
yes, exactly. What about the North Carolina transfers that came from Stanford?
Yeah. They're going to be
I guess you
like,
could. It all depends if they get that year back. If they get the year, which I
yeah.
don't know if
Well, it depends. Well, a lot of the people who transferred didn't have cross country. They were all transferring for an extra outdoor year. So they
okay.
could still just be normal and, hey, we got our outdoor season. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a Tommy Ratcliffe might be like, hey, I'm not going to come back for cross country, you know.
Yeah, yeah. No, the international thing is a very interesting point because they might just say this is impossible to figure out. I don't really know what's going to happen. I think the people who went pro of the ones that have gone pro are probably very happy that they went pro. Aside from just getting money, they probably are thinking it's nice. It's a relief not to have to deal with all this. I mean, they have uncertainty, of course, in their own competition schedule, but it's not quite the same because now they've at least reached that top level, and it's a lot easier for them to find competitions than the collegiate athletes with how the system is moving. Do you have any other updates here from?
I'm refreshing Twitter right now. Got
Mhm.
nothing.
Yeah. Well, I guess I mean, do we label the episode NCAA cross country has been canceled and just hope that by the time someone downloads it that it gets to that, even though the episode itself wouldn't have been about that because we didn't get to the 50%. I don't know what we call it.
I don't know either. I mean, I feel like we've been dragging this thing out. I feel like we've done the same
Yeah.
pod like 3 times in a row. Have we?
Well, it's this pod or the, as you mentioned before, the so and so signs with Bowerman pod, or the what was it? What was the third one?
No,
There
it's
was a
like what will
third
Bowerman run? It's
iteration.
the what will Bowerman run pod. Then it's the cross country, and then it's the
Oh, and the whereabouts failures.
whereabouts failures. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna put in my
So
2020 journal. Is I did 145 pods about 3 topics.
Who do you okay? Looking at the list of conferences, who do you think would be the next one after the? Was it the Southland that you reported?
So okay, Big South just went out, right? So the
I'm sorry,
next
Big
one,
South.
yeah. So Big Sky is meeting today, and I think Big Sky. They said they're meeting on Wednesday, and so did Southland.
Hmm.
So I think I'm gonna go with Big Sky being the next. Because here's the Big Sky already moved football, right? And one of their teams has already canceled all fall sports, Eastern Washington. So Big Sky technically kind of kicked the can down the road for Olympic sports,
Yeah,
but they already kicked the football can. So I'm sure they're probably just going to kick the fall sports can as well, right? Down to spring. And that if Big Sky does officially cancel fall sports, it adds another 10 to the list. And you just need 7 more women's teams and 9 more men's teams. So we will get to our 50%. You know, it's like watching
yeah,
election night, trying to get to the, what was it, number two? How many
270.
electoral, 270 something electoral votes? That's what we're doing. We're trying to get to the 270 electoral votes to cancel
Yeah.
sports.
Well, we prefer not to. We don't want to get to that, but it seems like where we're headed. How ironic would it be if the Big Sky Conference is the one that gets to 50 with the NAU Lumberjacks featuring prominently in that conference? Or maybe
It
it's
would
the
be
West
our,
Coast Conference with the
yeah,
reigning men's champion
BYU.
BYU. Yeah,
I also
it probably won't
think
be.
that
It'll probably be the Horizon
I,
League or something.
yeah, a son. Um, here's one caveat though. Hold out. So the Northeast Conference, I'm gonna end with this one. Northeast Conference, which has 9 men's teams and 10 women's teams, they technically announced that everything is postponed to 2021, but they did say we will reconvene on October 1st to reevaluate. So what I'm
Just in time for
saying is we could hit that 50% threshold, but then on October 1st, the Northeast Conference can save the season and we can be
yeah,
coming back and be back under that 50% threshold.
I like it. Does the Atlantic Sun have the best conference name?
That's good. I mean, anything that
How
has
would you rank?
Big West sounds funny, I think. Like
Okay.
it sounds like cuz all the it's
Well, because
like
you have the Big
I don't
East.
know. Yeah, I guess Big East. I guess Big West. It just seems so like we want to try to fit in with the bigs, but we
Mhm.
pick a location. Uh,
Yeah,
I think Conference USA is kind of like interesting. I like Conference USA.
because it's literally from. I like the Atlantic Sun from the perspective of you can say a sun, and that sounds kind of cool. Like it's abbreviated.
Yeah,
Uh, name is snappy as well too. Big South is cool. I don't know why.
yeah.
I
I
I,
like
I meant you're right. I
Sunbelt.
like
That's pretty
big.
good.
Yeah, I like big and then a direction versus big and then a number. If I had to like Big Ten to me is not as cool. Now the conference is obviously stronger. Big Ten is not as cool sign to me as like Big West or Big East. I like the location
Or
in there.
Big Sky. Big Sky is a good one.
Big
I know
Sky
what you're
is
talking
good.
about.
That you're right. That might be in there too. Big Sky is a nice conference name. Because have
I
you ever
think
been to like Montana and Idaho? Have you ever been out to those states?
I've been to
You know what the
Idaho.
first
Yeah,
thing? Yeah, when you're driving down the freeway, you know what the first thing you notice is?
the
How
Sky.
big the sky is. Yeah, it's like this is huge. It's like it's everywhere. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Beautiful part of the country. In any event. Any
I
last
think they like
words?
the I like swag because it's kind of like swag.
Oh yeah. SWAC does sound cool. We should have done the whole episode on this. The conference names
Power
ranked.
ranking,
Maybe.
conference names. There's definitely better conference names in D2 and D3 for sure, though. 100%.
Ooh,
We
that's a
just
good
don't know
episode
about
for when
them.
Lincoln returns. Lincoln, come
Yeah.
back. We need you to power rank D2 and D3 conferences. If you're listening, send a smoke signal, Lincoln. We want you back. All right. Let's leave it there. We'll talk tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have more certainty about what's going on. We appreciate everybody's patience sticking with us. We
Yes.
know not the most fun, most entertaining episode out there, but we'll get back to track. We'll
Do we
have
have emails?
some memories. We do have some emails. Perhaps we'll tackle those tomorrow as well. We got a big meet that we can preview coming up on Friday with Monaco, and then we have a big meet in Hungary next week as well too, with some familiar names. So
Live on
they'll be tracked. Yeah, live on FloTrack as well too. There'll be some track to talk about as well too. But for the time being, this has been the story, just because we do follow the NCAA scene so closely. So we'll leave it there. Thank you to Alon for producing. Thank you to my co-host Gordon, and we'll talk to you guys again tomorrow.